All right, cool. I'll start with sharing my screen. Currently, the concept of this call is basically where we would go over the posts of the participants here around the table, and we would have a look at them, and could either be like the posts that performed well for you and where you could have a look like, okay, why did it perform well and what can we learn from it? On the other hand, it could also be a post that flopped, like thought would go well, but it actually didn't. Analyze what went wrong, how we can improve, and what we can learn from it. That's the main goal or the main thing we'll be doing today. If you have any posts that check the box of being a good post or a bad post, feel free to post them here. I'll post a link to your threads post in the chat. An important rule is the post should be posted so we can actually check and see, okay, how much followers do you have? And does the ratio with the engagement you got on the post, does that match up well? Yes or no? So that's why we're asking to avoid overthinking, because we could spend 2 hours contemplating over a draft of a post, but that not super helpful. We want to post and learn from that. That's the whole philosophy. If you have any post, good or bad, feel free to share it in the chat. Same for you, Lisha, Lennox. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of yourself, but if you came across a crazy post, feel free. This is the place where we share and pull them together and see what's it. That worked very well. I see you have a quick story, Lennox. I don't know if you want to tell it now or maybe tell it when you have more people in the room.
I feel like it's a good note to end on.
That's great.
Yeah. So I'll go into the nitty gritty of it later.
Perfect. Did you have any particular post in mind?
Yeah, so I have this post that did pretty well last week.
All right.
And I guess my issue is that I don't know how to replicate good posts.
Mm-hmm.
I'll figure it out, okay, what clicked and what didn't.
Oh, Lennox, you're too fast. Okay, this is a long form one. I didn't take a strategic choice here because I have my desktop Notion thing. All right. Let me stop presenting. All right, cool. So indeed. Oh yeah, Linux, that's fine. I don't think you have to
No.
embed the entire thread. So 5 choices I'm making at 29 to avoid regret when I'm 35. That's an interesting hook. I'm seeing a lot of numbers. It's also concise. The age hook works super well because it really helps people resonate with you, even if age feels like a super generic thing, yet we seem to really to relate on age level. And yeah, I think everyone around the age of 29 is super keen to read this. Also because of what comes after it, to avoid regret when I'm 35. Like nobody wants to regret his life by 35 or like by any age whatsoever, but you made it super specific because this implies that you have a certain vision in mind. And that's like a very subtle nuance, but I'm like feeling like this hook implies that, yeah, like you have a vision and vision is super important. A vision is what drives personal brand. And this hook makes me want to read more about your vision. I want to get on your journey on, okay, which choices are we making today to improve our lives by the age of 35? Those were my 2 cents about the hook, and we can dive into the content a bit later. And I don't know, Lisha, Linux, do you have any 2 cents on why this performed well? Because yeah, you're at 30 followers and like this amount of views and this engagement is super good for the amount of followers you're at. So that ratio, definitely a win.
Yeah. Leisha, you've had more success with the age-based hooks than I have. Do you have any thoughts?
In reference to this one, I think it's, yeah, with the age and then also like avoid regret. Most people are like, shoot, I want to avoid that. So they're going to read that. That's going to catch their attention right there.
Yeah, this short sentence applies both anti-vision and vision. Like anti-vision is regret and like you're making some choices there implies vision. And I think that's like super powerful. So to have a look at the rest of your post, like just from scrolling through, I really like how concise everything is. I can actually put it on one page almost, which is definitely something I can learn from because I tend to overwrite, if that's even a word, but you get what I mean. Stop waiting for perfect timing, prioritize relationships. Like what's super powerful if you like write a longer form thread like this, if I just scroll through and I just read the headlines, I almost already get my value, right? Or I get the big picture. And that's how this is formatted really allows that. Stop waiting for perfect timing. Great point. Prioritize relationships. Great point. Invest in my health. Great point. Simplify my life with systems. Interesting. So maybe I want to read that because I may not immediately know what that means, but that's why like you have a post about it. Make choices for my future self. Yeah, super concise, super like crunchy, how we like to call that here. Well, good thread. Honestly, I don't have much more to say. I don't know about the other masters around the table.
Crunchy as fuck.
That's good because I always struggle with that. I also tend to do like really long threads,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
I'm learning.
This was spot on. I'll just echo what Bjorn was saying, that you can skim it. I've just got a screenshot up on the page there that you can see on Bjorn's screen that shows you an overview of it from start to finish. And it's just really concise. You can skim it and get 90% of it in a very quick skim. These are all points that relate. Everyone can read them or skim them and be like, yeah, I agree. Number one, stop waiting for the perfect time. I agree. Prioritize relationships. Amen. Invest in my health. So important. Simplify my life with systems. Fuck yeah. Make choices for my future self. Absolutely. You read those and you're like, yep. It's very easy to read. It's very relatable. And you grab the attention in the hook. And yeah, honestly, in terms of what you could do to replicate this, it would be, I can promise you, and everyone else would say the same thing here. It was the fact that your hook was so compelling that made the rest of the post do so well. Because if the hook is not very good, then this would not have done nearly as well. So if I was to give you like one action point to try and replicate it in the future, it's to look at those points that we discussed about the hook. It's relatable, it's specific, it uses numbers, and it's concise, and apply that to future hooks for long form posts. And those would be the key aspects of it. And then if you were to add anything, instead of putting a question at the end, which I'm not against, but I think it would be more effective just in terms of your own growth if you replace that question with a CCH and just follow you if you want to see more posts like this. Because even though sometimes it's obvious, if someone likes one of my posts and they're just going to go and follow me, but I've found that especially like really in long form threads exclusively, you got to ask them to follow because it's just not everyone is that switched on when they're reading your stuff. And if you do that at the end and it's a valuable post like this one was, then they're much likely to go and do that because you've just given them a lot in exchange, and they'd be thinking, makes sense. I want to get more posts like this, so I'm going to go and follow Karen.
Yeah, makes sense.
Like one last point to wrap this one up is just these types of posts, whether it's like short or long form, it also is a great one for engagement because people always want to add like their sixth one to the list, so to say. So like these types of posts are super engageable. If that's the other word. Yeah, you get what I mean. Or just, yeah, people saying, yeah, I resonate with this or I agree with this. So very powerful. Okay. I don't know, Karen, do you have any like bad posts you want to have a look at? You have us entirely for you during this hour, so it seems. So use us.
But post plenty.
Anyone in
Uh,
particular you want to have a look at?
let me see. Maybe this one that I posted yesterday. Let me copy the link.
Hope you're getting some posts up as well, Leisha.
All right. Let me read aloud. I was juggling it all: full-time job, freelance gig, growing Etsy shop, but I was drowning, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck in a cycle of doing everything but going nowhere. But I found a way out. So it's long form. Oh, it's a mini long form. I built a simple system to structure my day. No more guessing, no more wasted time. Now I get things done and feel in control. My first impression is here, like what you did very well in the last post was specificity. And here, like I get the opposite impression. Okay, the first, like the 3 bullets are definitely interesting. Those are like kind of specific, or like it paints a picture of your situation. But like the other words you use to describe the situation, like you juggling it all, you were drowning, distracted, overwhelmed, in a cycle of doing everything, going nowhere. That's a bit, yeah, it's not, I don't know what the right word is, but it doesn't really get me to relate. I really want to get to the bottom of this pain that you had or that you experienced, to actually me wanting to find out like what was your solution to it. Let me just close my door because it's storming. So that's like my first 2 cents. I build a simple structures. And here, like these remarks are just like high level. But for these types of long forms, I would actually give a breakdown of how that like simple system would look like. Because now you talk about the why you should structure days to not be overwhelmed anymore, to not feel drowned and all those things. But I actually want to get a quick, concise breakdown, like basically what you did in the other post, like point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like the main, like without giving everything away per se, but just give a bit of the cherries on the cake away. So like people like actually want to click further and get the full system. So that's a bit what I'm missing here in this post. Also, the way this first post is formatted, it's not like, it doesn't make me feel like it's like a hook of a longer form thread. It feels like a standalone short form post. And it's not unless I like read this last little sentence that I found out like there was more. Like here I was like already waiting for a close because I was expecting a short form post. I don't know, Lennox, Leisha, your first impressions if you see this post.
I would say, yeah, actually, I couldn't help but think about one of the posts that I was reviewing in the cohort a couple of days ago, Bjorn and Leisha. It wasn't yours, Leisha. And just because I was reviewing it, like, and reviewing all, so obviously it could be good or bad, but I'll get it up as a, for example, and
Sure.
I'm sure Slow will be happy to me to put it up there. And if she's not, then I apologize. And the point is, so I've just embedded it. Hopefully it comes up on yours. Yeah, comes up on the
It's
main screen.
coming.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring this up is because that it all comes down to the first sentence here. So, Aaron, the hook of a long form post, and a long form post is, I classify as any post really that has, I'd say 3 or more posts in total. So yours, like it's a medium post because it's got one top one and one bottom one. I've not really experimented much with that structure, but I have posted a bunch of them. But in my experience, they don't. It's hard to make them work that well. But I have seen other people who experiment with storytelling about parenting specifically use maybe 2 or 3 posts to tell a story, and they do really well. What I'm trying to say here is that structure is not my expertise. That being said, the first sentence of it is 99%, will determine 99% of how well the rest of your post does. Because when people are scrolling down the feed, they will read most of the time the top sentence first, maybe with the exception of they're scrolling and then they see this crazy picture, and then that's what makes them scroll back up and read the first sentence first. All of that is to say, you've got to nail it and open a story loop or some sort of curiosity loop in your first sentence. And when I was reviewing Flo's post, which started with, I used to think I had to live with my mistakes, the first thing that I told her about Flo's post was that it's not making me curious enough to want to keep reading. So I'll read this. I used to think I had to live with my mistakes. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I relate to that. But I'm not I'm not like, oh, what's the next sentence? What makes me, why do I need to read the next sentence? And that's what I felt after I read your other hook, which was, it's not loading for me, where it is. Yeah. 5 choices I'm making at 29 to avoid regret when I'm 35. That's making me feel like I need to continue reading it. But the first sentence of yours, I was juggling it all, doesn't. And that's the main difference here. And it's similar to Flo's first sentence. I used to think I delivered my mistakes. I don't feel like I need to continue reading. So if that would be really the only thing that I would consider tweaking in literally every post that you write year after, actually. That's like the most valuable and important thing you can do. Try and open a big loop in the first sentence that makes people think they need to continue reading. Your thoughts, Felicia?
I was going to say something similar. Like, I probably wouldn't have started with the I was juggling it all. I would have put something before that to catch their attention, to get them to want to read it.
Yeah. I was also already in problem solving mode and I was rewriting it. That's also what I would do, because this block necessarily, I was juggling it all. And then the 3 bullets, that's not necessarily a bad block of text, so to say, but it's just not placed very well. This doesn't perform as a hook on its own. As Lisha says, we need a hook. And then I was juggling it all. Full-time job, freelance gig, growing, Etsy shop, right? And the hook could be something like, again, try and make it specific, like just going to like brainstorm on the spot, or like something like 3 years ago I was burnout, or I don't know, make it super specific. I couldn't get out of bed, or I don't know, something along those lines to like really hit the nail on the head, like how painful it was. And then you expand on it by saying it's because I was juggling it all. And just to give it more context.
Only embed that just to show you the difference between, so the top 4 sentences of my posts on the screen there, Karen, are the same structure as yours, right? You go from 1 sentence into a little colon and then 3 dot points. And I just bring up this example to show you how important the very first sentence is to make people hooked and want to continue reading. And if I start off with me at 23, that's opening a big story loop in saying, oh, I wonder what this guy was doing at 23. And that is what gets people to continue reading. And that is, we could compare and contrast that with I was juggling it all, because it doesn't give people the same like burning desire to go and continue reading it. And that's really the level of intense desire we need to create with our writing for people to continue reading, because people call it the attention economy for a reason, right? You have to give them a good reason to give that for them to pay attention.
Yeah, generally it just lacks a hook basically. And also like when I see yours, my attention went directly with the me at 27 today.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's implying those 3 words, what is it? 9 characters, including the spaces and the colon in my hook, open a huge story loop. And even if you don't skim to me at 27 today part, it's implied that I'm going to get to some sort of resolution, but I'm painting the picture of a problem before I get there. And that's what creates this. That's what makes this post inspirational. It's not entertaining. It's not educational. It's inspirational.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Great example.
Sal, welcome to College Class number 2, my man.
Hey man, welcome. Right, Karen, do you think you can work with this feedback? I think as we just came to the conclusion, it mainly comes to a hook, and then the points that I brought up, you can take this idea or the ideas you wanted to convey in this post many directions. You can turn it in a similar post as the one that Lennox just embedded here. You can make it a long form post where you dive a little bit deeper into your day structure system and then plug your lead. And I really think there's a lot of like potential here in the ideas you wrote in this post.
Yeah, I guess that also in general, I'm still like figuring out exactly what my audience is. I
Mm.
feel like I'm there, but I'm still not there yet. So that's why I think it gets the hook is still I still struggle with it a little bit. That's why some of my posts does well and some of them not. But yeah, definitely I'm learning it all.
Of
It's just
course.
been like less than a month, I think, that I've been on Threads.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And you can already write like threads like this. That's cool. It's amazing. Yeah. It's by the end of the day, it's practice, it's reps, it's throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, see what falls. That's the threads game. And I think Lennox, Lisha, you can all acknowledge that. All right, cool. I don't know. Let me just quickly introduce what we're doing here today is we're having a look at bad posts and good posts from people around the table. And like we're just analyzing them, pulling them together to see what went well or what can be improved. So I don't know if you have any threads posts you have posted in the last week that either went good, went bad, and we could have a look at all together. See you asked the question, do you cross post on X? We used to do that, Lennox and I, a few months ago, but it literally got us burned out because just like rationally, technically speaking, it's perfectly possible and automatable to cross post your content that you're posting on threads, cross post it to X or the other way around, like whatever your main platform is. But the reality is that to grow on a platform like threads or X, you really need to engage on the platform. You need to find your people on the platform. And for to do that, like you need to actually be on the platform. And being on two platforms is just super exhausting and time consuming. And that's why both Lennox and myself like quit X and went all in on threads. But we have some people who do the other thing, like whatever platform sits best with you is one you should go fully for, unless you're like, you have your shit figured out or like you're at, I don't know how many followers. It's a potential path to do the repurposing or have it automated or whatever. But if you're just starting out, I would just recommend to go all in on one platform. That's a very long answer to your very short question. Let us have a look at your post. So, all right, I'm 19, but I don't drink, party, have a girlfriend. The last one's personal. Okay. It's a very short one, very concise one. So that's probably, let me check it opened up on my other screen. Okay. You have around 100 followers. So again, this is a good engagement rate considering that. Like the I'm 19 or I'm age whatever, it's definitely it's a proven hook. So you get that down. But I don't like, and then you list like three things that are like typical things a boy of 19 years old would like do, but you're not. And I'm a bit, I wouldn't say intrigued, but I'm interested to hear more about what that actually means. Like the last one's personal. For me, that implies some mystery. And that might be like, I don't know how the comment section looks like, but in my opinion, what would have made this post better is it's well structured. I don't drink, party, have a girlfriend. And then maybe open up a new little list, basically the format Lennox used in this post, and go ahead and say what you're doing instead. For example, writing every day, building a business, and a third point that might, and then a heavy hitting one-liner saying your teens or like the end of your teens and the start of your 20s are to build like your foundation and not waste it on cheap pleasure. Something like that would be a good closing line. But not to say that this post is bad at all, but you can definitely take the idea that I just gave you here and like go for it. I don't know anyone else around the table, any thoughts around this post? And maybe in the meantime, Sab, feel free to get a bad post or like a post that didn't perform very well, and put the link here, and we can also have a look at it.
So do you have a specific question about this post? Do you have a question as, would it be like, what made it do well? How could I do it better? If you have a specific question, that would definitely help to give a bit more tailored feedback. Easy, dude. Groceries come first, spreads later.
Yeah, food is super important.
Leisha, what about you? Have you got a post or two that you want to know? And even Karen, you got some thoughts? Can take a look at?
I can always find one. Here's one. Ha.
It's
There you go.
all right. Should we categorize it as good or bad?
Oh, it's not good. It's not good.
All right. It's not embeddable, so it's that bad.
Yeah, sorry. No, this is something I've been trying to embed, because every day I go through everyone's posts in the cohort and add all of the ones that get over 100 likes as examples for the post templates. And all of your posts, Leisha, can't be embedded. So I think it's something to do with your privacy permissions on Threads, because I can embed every single post except ones that you've posted.
That's odd.
Well, yeah, that's true. Because do you remember, Lisha, when I did your profile audit a few weeks ago, I also tried to embed something
Yes.
because I was trying to show something and it didn't work as well. So this is like a problem that has been going on for a while, apparently.
How do you change that?
That I'm not sure of. I really don't.
Let's see.
In the meantime, I will just do it like this. I have it up left here and then can just, oh shit, ocean formatting text. Finding your purpose is not difficult. You are just holding yourself back. So do this, talk to others, embrace discomfort, take small steps daily, reflect on your journey, challenge your mindset. Purpose is right there. Start reaching for it. So what went wrong here?
Everything.
It's probably a hook problem, obviously.
Yeah.
And finding your purpose is not difficult. It feels like a bold take, but still for some reason it doesn't compel me enough to continue reading. And I think it's maybe a bit too generic, and you have no idea what purpose means in this context, maybe like what purpose or what does it mean, how this purpose looks, feels, smells like. That's not what I'm getting here. So that's one thing. You're just holding yourself back. I really see like the idea behind it, but how can we convey this a bit better? Like, I think just like the main quote unquote issue is that I have here is, and that's maybe a harsh takeaway, but I don't really feel that I got closer to finding my purpose after reading this post. I know that's a bit harsh, but that's just how I honestly feel. That's probably what caused the engagement not to be as good as we want it to be. I don't know. What do you think, Lennox?
Oh, wait, I'm just going to go back to the tab because we can't embed it. So I got to look at the screen instead of the mini version on my screen and picture.
Oh, yeah.
The more and more posts that I reviewed, and I'm sure like Dawn, you feel the same way. Leisha basically there now, because one would hope that you've learned a lot about hooks since literally the day after that was posted.
Mm-hmm.
And then Karen, for you, really, if I was to give you what people have paid $400 for in our cohort so far to put it into one lesson, it would be to nail the first sentence of the hook and to open a huge loop. And honestly, you can't emphasize that enough. I can say that once. You've heard it a bunch of times in this call so far. You still won't fully understand how important that is until you do many more reps. I can only hope to save you a lot of time and effort that you just assume that you posted thousands of times and only just learned that last week, like I have, and try and do that now because that's what it comes down to. And that's what I would say. That's the only thing that is worth spending time on for Leisha's post. Finding your purpose is not difficult. It's a closed loop. It's a definitive statement that doesn't get me to continue reading the rest of it. And you could talk about other ways to optimize the rest of it, but it's honestly it's not worth it, because if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a reader, I haven't even gotten that far because I've kept scrolling.
Yep. Closed loop problem. How would we rewrite it to maintain the message but open the loop instead?
While I'm tweaking, if you want to just scroll back up or down, depending on where it is, but I wrote a sample hook that's an alternative hook that Karen can use for a post that we're looking at before in that call out box. So Karen, if you're still around and you want to like screenshot that or whatever, I think it's a bit of an improvement.
Nice. Yeah. That actually inspires me to write an alternative one for this as well. This is not the hook. This is actually where I would end it, like finding purpose. It's not difficult. Right here, something like that. And then we need that, obviously.
Sorry.
I would make that the clothing. That's your hook? Okay. I was thinking a hook for something along the lines of, for years I felt lost, or like something along those lines. Because that's like what not having a purpose looks like. You're lost, you're like uncertain and all those things. Like I would try and paint that picture. And
Yeah, I may be totally wrong, but I think it's also like what you guys always say about proof. Like you're saying your purpose is not difficult, finding your purpose is not difficult, but like, why are you saying this? Who are you to tell me this? Something like that.
Yeah, that's definitely another like secondary element, but that becomes, it's like the open loop in the first sentence and proof becomes more important in a long form post. Or in other words, proof is really important in every post, but it's most important in a long, in a long form post versus a short form post, because you're asking people to give you more attention. So then you should justify why them giving you more attention is a good trade-off for them.
Right.
Maybe, Darren, wouldn't mind asking you, looking at the right-hand side of the screen where we've got some alternative hooks, we've got what Bjorn's just written there, and then mine. And I'm just really encouraging you to roast it. It would be good to just get like a fresh set of eyes on it. Do either of those make you want to read the rest of the post that Leisha's written more than the original version or less? And there isn't a wrong or right answer here. It's just literally your honest take.
For somebody that experienced this not long ago, I can say probably maybe the second one, just because that the phrase of purpose isn't something you find. I think that hooked me.
I was still brainstorming actually, but I'm happy at putting my, because that's also just a general tip. I wasn't there yet, but I was probably going to write another 3 sentences, just like to get the juices flowing in my brain. And then I would go ahead, edit it and get it to something that makes sense. Here I was really just an ideation phase, but indeed just from trying to write it, the sentence purpose isn't something you find came out. And actually, as you say, Karen, there's something interesting there indeed. But yeah, I wasn't finished, but yeah, we'd get there if I had a few more minutes, but yeah.
Listen to not overthink it.
Yeah.
Did you mean to put wasted time in the first sentence, Bjorn?
I don't know. I was still workshopping it because I thought it was just interesting to, how do I say this? Implies that it like took you a very long time being on a certain path, struggling, feeling lost, or like wasting time, like looking for my purpose. And here we just built the proof that you like actually struggled for so fucking long with this like burning issue. So that's what I was trying to get in there. And then you're there with the resolution, right? So that's how these posts roll. So like I didn't phrase it perfectly, but that's what I was trying to get at here. Yeah.
Leisha, when you read it, we'll do it like 2-pronged question. What do you feel like you would want to get out of the rest of the post after reading my book? And then the second is, what would you feel like you'd want to get from the rest of the post once you finish reading Bjorn's hook? And not to compare, we're not doing a which is better. We're answering, what do I get from either of these if I was to continue reading, and to compare those two answers to your hook itself. And that's that's what people are thinking subconsciously. So yeah, to ask you those questions now, what would you say you'd want to get out of both of those if you just read them?
I would want to get like how I could find my purpose, like how to come out of that. Yeah.
Wait, which one does resonate best, first or second one?
I would probably have to go with the first one just because the 4 years I felt lost and wasted time, or whatever that word would be, looking for my purpose. But they're both good. Better than what I have.
If I can give my 2 cents, I think both are decent hooks, but the first one would work if you're like, correct me if I'm wrong, Lennox, but if you're like actually someone that's an authority, like if Dan Go would write that first hook, everybody would be like, oh shit, I want to read more. But if like somebody like quote unquote like us would write the second hook, it implies more like we've been through this shit. And that's like where my authority comes from. That for me, that's like the difference between the two. Because this first one, that's really one that Dan Coe could have written. So kudos to you, Lennox. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say here. So both are technically good, but I think the second one, like with maybe some rephrasing, some better words, might help for someone like who has like not the authority established yet in his field of expertise. That makes
That
sense.
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I got it.
Because that's a bit like where it went wrong with your original version, because it's like a statement to be like bold and hard. Who are you to say finding your purpose is not difficult, right? Like, of course you can say that, but you have nothing to back it up in this, like how you've framed this post. So yeah, that's like something like this would help. And I think this sentence, like it could serve as a hook, but it could also be like easily a little sentence in the body as well. I think there are like a bunch of puzzle pieces here, like we can like puzzle together into a very decent post, to be frank,
Honestly, I reckon my hook would work all right, literally as a one-liner post, as it is.
Oh yes. Sorry.
It will
Yeah.
raise a lot of questions.
Go
If
ahead
you
and
think
approach
about
it.
those. You know what? I'm going to do it right now.
Go for it. And if you're not doing it, I will do it.
Yeah, Karen, you mentioned that point about not overthinking it. And the idea of me being like, oh yeah, maybe I'll go do it later is literally overthinking it. So I'm posting it right now.
Dude, this might go very well, to be honest. I don't know when it was. I think it's already a few weeks back. That there was also like a post that we wrote here, and I posted it immediately, and it performed well. So funny how that goes.
There's a lot to be said about that.
That's how to be said about. All right, Karen. I don't know if you like have any, because we're like closing the end of the hour. If you have any further question, maybe you put like another post you want to have I'll look at before we leave, feel free to your questions if you want.
Maybe I can share one more, if that's okay.
No, I'm sorry, I missed that. No,
You're doing Alicia, Bjorn.
yeah, it was Alicia moment. I'm so sorry, Karen. Can you repeat?
Wow.
You can come in, Karen. Sorry for the interruption.
And I was saying like I can maybe share like one more.
Yeah, of course. Go for it. Go
One
for
more
it. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Last one to wrap this one up. It's funny, Lennox, how like at every like post roasting session, we always end at the same conclusions, like opening loops.
Yeah. Well, if there, honestly, no amount of time spent talking about this will justify or equate to just how important they are. Mr. B says it. I've listened to his interviews that he does with a couple of creators on YouTube, and they happen almost yearly now. And every time he is asked at the beginning of them, what have you learnt since this time last year? And every time he basically says, I thought the hook was really important last year, and now I've learned that it's even more important. And he just keeps saying it year after year.
Wow.
And if there's anyone to just absorb a lesson from when it comes to making content, it's got to be him.
Wow. Yeah. Book is everything. All right. Karen led us to do these every day. Reflect for 10 minutes, get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Plan tomorrow in 15 minutes. Spend 30 minutes tech free. Move your body, walk, stretch, or work out. Small, consistent habits lead to big change. Start today. Okay. The content is like the 5 bullets are definitely, I totally agree. And no surprise, it's in the hook here again, because normalized to do these every day, it opens a loop. So like we check that box, but why should we continue on reading? Should we why would we normalize these things? What's the implied benefit, or what's the context? Or is this going to make me a better creator? Is this going to make me a better entrepreneur? Is this going to make me feel more healthy? Is this going to get my mind clearer? I miss that piece of the puzzle. And it's funny. This is actually no, I can't. What was I going to say here? Yeah, I think it's an hook, and like you need to frame or make us keen to keep on reading. And this is a process, like these 5 steps, that's a process, but how would you call that process, Karen? And why is this process good for us? Because this, like, main key ingredients I always to have in a post is like the why, the how, and this is mainly the how. Like this whole post is the how, but like I'm lost on the why, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I normally just go after people who is burnout. And I guess I'm not really portraying that here.
Like that already sparks inspiration for me, like 5 daily habits that keeps me out of burnout. It could be improved, but it already has an entirely different meaning, because here is maybe I can actually like make it more powerful. I think 5 small, just like to imply low effort, but high outcomes. Like it's low effort because it implies 5 small daily habits. So it's small, it's daily, and it keeps me out of burnout. Like everyone wants to stay out of burnout, right? And then you give like the 5 bullets, and like you can probably work on that last sentence. Let me just YCB. And how can we close this one off? Probably need to ideate on that one. I don't know, other masters around the table, any thoughts while I try to come up with a closing line for this one?
Yeah, I've got just an alternative hook, or even same thing, just flipped around.
I think the difference here between mine and yours is again that keeps me out of burnout, and then there's speed burnout with these 5. I think we're like maybe at the same. I think both can work again, honestly. I think for this one, the closing sentence is also super important. And something along the lines that it's hard to brainstorm on the spot sometimes. Oh, actually read an interesting headline yesterday. Like it can just inspire. Burnout wasn't just knocking, it had moved in. But that's a headline I like. That was in my mailbox yesterday. Something we can play with. We can say, I don't know if this actually fits, but just came to my mind. That's also why it's super important to read stuff. It feeds your mind to come up with stuff like this. Could say something like, don't wait to prevent burnout while it's knocking. No, I don't know. A big thought. Anyone else? My brain is fried.
I would add that this is actually like a great post. Again, in light of just where you're at in the sort of the journey of growth on Threads, to have like 100 followers? Let's have a look. 131. And for this to get 500 views and then 16 likes, honestly, I'd be stoked with that. I was stoked with that when I had 130 followers. Really, that was a really good post for me. Even though these tweaks can make some small, and meaningful changes, I would definitely classify this as a good post.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think homework for next time will be practice the hooks.
The most valuable skill.
Yep.
Big time.
Big time. Got to spend 80% of your time and energy on the hook, and then 20% on the rest of your post. That's at least how the importance is divided. If it's not even 90/10, that's what I'm like seeing more and more. All right. I think that was, Lennox, you want to do your story before we leave?
Story time to close the class as we all head off to bed or the rest of our day. I went to, it was around this time, which is like 9 o'clock for me. I just finished work, went to the gym, wanted to write this post, and I was just thinking about whether or not I wanted to write it, because it just involved a lot of vulnerability, but I also felt like it was really important to share. And anyway, I'd created a draft for it. I then went into the massage chair after the gym, as I am known to do, to write this post while just relaxing and having some recovery. And then I'm writing the post, and then I literally keep falling asleep because I was really tired, and it was late, and it was like 12 o'clock by that point, and I just was drifting in and out of sleep in the massage chair at the gym. And then I was like, no, I'm going to fucking finish this thing, because I had the post preview window up and I was going to go and post it, and I wanted to finish it and just do it then and there. And then I went and posted it, and I started walking out to the car and to just drive home. And then it was an uncomfortable process to go and post it, because it was just so raw and just real, to be honest with you. And I don't do this many times, but this was one of those times where I was keeping a close eye on how it was doing within the first 10 minutes of posting it. And I don't think it hadn't gotten any likes. And I was like, oh. And so this was me heading out to the car. And I was like, as I started heading off, I swear to God, I was thinking, oh, maybe I should just delete it. And then I actually thought about something I'd mentioned in a previous class, or maybe it was in same circle, where someone asked, do you delete any posts? And then I'd said, no, I don't, because it's part of the journey. And the only post I've ever deleted was literally in a YouTube video tutorial about how to delete a post on Threads. So, and it was the meme post. But that's the only post I've ever deleted. And the thing that prevented me from deleting it was me just trying to practice what I preach. Now, you might be wondering, okay, Lennox, why are you telling me all this? Let me just share my screen real quick, because it's important to get the moral of the story here. And let me know when you can see it. Infinity window. All right. And yeah, Karen, you got a hand up?
No, sorry, it's quick.
No, all good. We haven't even gotten to the good part yet. So anyway, this is the post that I am referring to. And look, I guess the results speak for themselves. It's gone, I think this is the most recent in terms of how it's going. Let me get up the statistics again. Yeah, the post has gotten 24,000 views, 366 likes, 44 comments, 57 reposts, and however many shares. Why do I mention this? Because this post was about porn and my experience with a porn addiction. And I felt, obviously, that's a very raw topic to bring up, but I felt like it was too important not to, given what I'd recently learned about this whole thing and just how much I'd learned about it just completely fucking with your brain. And obviously that process of sharing it was difficult. It was really hard, but here's the benefit of doing it. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying you should talk about this stuff to go viral. I'm saying that being vulnerable on Threads is a great thing, because not only will it help you connect with more people, but it will also help you share your story because when you get beautiful things said about posts that are like really raw and vulnerable, you attract people who more often than not will just give you a lot of support and to really just reaffirm that you're not alone. And that's really the moral of the story here. It's to not delete your posts, firstly, and to secondly, to just remember that really the harder it is to post something when you're telling a story, generally speaking, the more vulnerable you're being. And my experience has been every single time, the more vulnerable you are, the more valuable the post is and the more viral it will go. And if you can summarize this whole story in one really actionable little formula, which I'm obviously a big fan of, it is vulnerability, little arrow, value, little arrow, viral. Now, viral isn't the end goal. The end goal should just be making it valuable. And that's very clear. And one way that you can create really valuable posts is to just be vulnerable and share your story as it is. And obviously it helps to have some optimized, this is a very good hook and it's proven, but that obviously helps. But the crux of this is me just being real and raw and vulnerable about part of my story. And that's the story that I wanted to share. So hopefully encourage you on the call here and then anyone who's listening to the recording to just remember that as a general rule of thumb, the more comfortable it is to share something, the more valuable it will be to a lot of people who need to hear your story.
Amazing. Like I can totally acknowledge it. And I had made posts in the past that the resistance to hit publish is just because it's so close to your heart. I totally feel that. But I think how you actually framed the hook or like framed the post in general, like it's not about you, like, and in a good way. It's not you saying, "Oh, I struggled with this addiction and blah blah blah." No, it's you genuinely see you wrote this post to help other people forward, and it's framed in a way where it's just mastery. Like just this hook, it really speaks to me as a reader, and I think you just nailed it. And what I'm trying to say here, like you frame it as raw and vulnerable because like of the experiences that are attached to it. But if I read, doesn't necessarily convey raw or vulnerable to me, but
Not in the hook,
not in the hook.
but in the
And
body.
I know you
Realize,
get there.
yeah.
I know you get to that point. Yeah. And that's probably where the tension was. But again, most of the importance here is in the book, like 80%. So that's also how you should weigh it. But I totally get what you just said. But I'm happy you didn't delete it. This is mastery, truly.
I'm very happy too for all the reasons I just shared. And hopefully part of that resonates with you because it's just important. Other people out there have experienced the hardships and the moments of shame and embarrassment that you have felt and experienced, but they are also scared to share their story. And if you can gain and muster up the courage to take the step first, I promise you, it's a really beautiful way to grow in every way imaginable, whether that's personally, on threads, professionally, whatever. It's quite a rewarding experience. It's like a weight is lifted off your shoulders. And that's what, I encourage you to do after this call.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks for sharing. I think that's a wrap.